Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is the Raptor, and for this video, we are going to get very personal. As we know, the next episode of Death Battle will show off the first Fire Emblem character ever featured in the series, which is a franchise some people have been waiting for a very long time. So in honor of that happening, I've decided to come up with some other never-before-used franchises that I would personally like to see Death Battle cover one day. For this, I've come up with a franchise for each of the main types of media that Death Battle typically uses, those being comics, video games, manga/anime, Western animation, live action movies and TV shows, and I've thrown in novels as well because I figured it would round out the selection nicely. The main thing I should clarify is that the franchises I pick are dictated by what I like and what I'd like to see on Death Battle in general, and not dictated by pre-established matchups or what I put in my top 10 most wanted episodes video, for instance. I'll still bring up some matchups for the franchises I pick if I have any big ones for them, but even if a series doesn't have a ton of good matchups right now, they could still make the list because it's based on the franchises themselves. Just something to note. I'll be going in no particular order other than what flows best for the video, so first we'll start off with live action movies and TV shows. Now, Death Battle has obviously used a lot of combatants that have been in movie and TV adaptations, but aside from one or two big series, they haven't used as many characters that originated from that form, simply because not all of them are nearly as popular. That being said, there are still a few of those series that I'd love to see introduced, the main one of which being Star Trek. Star Trek is the science fiction property of the world we live in. The impact that it's made through its TV shows and films is enormous, and there is so much fascinating material for so many characters. Yes, it started a long time ago, but it's still making a ton of material today, and for all of that, it just feels like the perfect never-before-used series for Death Battle to look at. It's just awesome. As for any Star Trek episodes I'd like to see, obviously there's Kirk vs. Han, which is one of my most wanted fights of all time and really has no reason to not happen. There's also Picard vs. Thrawn, which would be incredibly unique and incorporates my favorite Star Trek character of my favorite Star Trek show. Q vs. Mr. Mxyzptlk as well, which I will admit is not perfect, but I still think could be fun. And lastly, some matchup for Spock. Spock is my favorite Star Trek character of all time, and yet I cannot for the life of me come up with a good fight for him. It's only logical that there is one, and I'd love one, I just don't know what it is yet. But either way, Death Battle, give us a Star Trek episode, please. Next, let's talk about comics. I like Marvel and DC as franchises a lot, but I'd really like to see other kinds of comics make their Death Battle debut, like how they did Invincible, The Boys, Spawn, TMNT, etc. My most wanted fight that includes a never-before-used comic series is Hellboy vs. Nero, but Hellboy as a series is not the main comic that I want to see get on Death Battle in general. Instead, that would have to go to another Dark Horse property, the Umbrella Academy. I don't think this is necessarily the most likely series to get on the show, and obviously most of the popularity it does have comes from the Netflix series, which is better than the comic, but I've actually read nearly all of the comics and seen the whole show so far. I can safely say that this is the most investment I have in a comic property outside of Marvel and DC, and I genuinely think there's enough interesting material to make a cool analysis and fight out of. In terms of its matchups that I like, I've seen simply the Umbrella Academy versus the Doom Patrol, which I think could work if handled well enough. There's also the Kraken versus Red Hood, which is my favorite alt for Red Hood, despite him already getting his best matchup, and my absolute favorite, the White Violin versus Dark Willow, which I will admit would be ranked higher than Hellboy versus Nero if I actually thought it had a chance for happening, which I really don't think it does. But this for me goes so hard thematically and intensity-wise, and would also bring in another one of my most wanted series, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, even though there are definitely other ways to do that. But yeah, those are probably my favorites right now. Next is another really big one for me, Western animation, including both TV shows and movies like we did with live action. This is hard for me because I want to see a lot of animation fights, but a lot of them are based more on the characters rather than the series they're in. So if we're really looking at the franchise for this, for me it has to be Looney Tunes. This is the biggest cartoon juggernaut that Death Battle hasn't covered in any capacity yet, and it's one that made my childhood as fun as it was. These characters and their old silly cartoons cartoons are just the best things to watch. A unique tone for an episode with this franchise is almost guaranteed, and the potential is absolutely limitless for spectacle and enjoyability. You guys know I love Bugs vs. Mickey. It's very close to being my most wanted episode ever. Daffy vs. Donald is another one I would gladly accept because I love them both to death. There's Wile E. Coyote vs. Tom, or Sylvester and Tweety vs. Tom and Jerry, if that's more your speed. There are so many great characters you can use. I could go on and on and on with the coolest or weirdest of them. And these guys aren't Looney Tunes, but I'd also love to see some kind of Animaniacs battle. I was just really into Warner Brothers growing up, if you can't tell. I think these characters are great to watch and could be just as great in a death battle. Now let's move on to manga and or anime, and I gotta be honest, I don't have too many strong thoughts about which series in particular get in. I just think more is always better. But a lot of the franchises I really like are ones Death Battle has already used, and a lot of the other ones that are really popular like Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man, I would like to see on the show, but I don't know much about them yet. The only never before used anime series that I have a strong attachment to is actually the Bakugan shows. There were a lot of people that grew up with Pokemon or Digimon or Yu-Gi-Oh, etc., but for me it was Bakugan. I thought it was fun as a kid. I collected some of the physical Bakugan and cards. This is the kids anime that spoke to me for some reason, and incorporating into Death Battle somehow would get me way more excited than any other new anime for the show. As far as matchups go, I've heard Dan vs. Jinka many times. I will say I'm not familiar with Beyblade, so I can't judge it too well, but it sounds fun at least, and I know you could put Dan against someone else easily anyway. Also Alice vs. Trent, the White Dino Ranger, which sounds interesting, though I might not be quite as excited. Spectra Phantom vs. Gladion as well, I've seen a bit. Like I said, I'm not picking the series in this video based on the matchups they have. I'm just picking series I think would be great for the show, period, and then talking about any matchups I can for it afterwards. The point is, if Death Battle makes Bakugan work on the show in some way, I would be ecstatic, an absolute blast for my past. For book series, my pick is honestly very straightforward, only because while I have read a lot of good books, most of them don't involve characters that would work well for Death Battle. But one that would is Percy Jackson and that whole shared universe. Yes, it's the obvious answer, but I genuinely loved reading through the original 5 books and have such a large appreciation for the world Rick Riordan created. Plus, I'm quite interested in various mythologies, and if Death Battle doesn't want to rush into doing another Hercules versus Sun Wukong, I think this is a good option. Now, obviously, there have been a number of matchups for Percy himself, some I like more than others, but at this point, I'm really not too picky who Death Battle would pair him with. I just want to see them talk about him and put him in an epic fight. And while there really aren't any matchups involving other characters I can think of that I really like, I wouldn't be opposed to that idea, especially for someone like Magnus Chase after I started reading that series. And yes, it is connected to Percy Jackson, basically just the Norse side of things. Either way, I love the shared universe, and frankly, I don't know what else to pick, so that's what I'm going with. And last but not least, we have video games. This is a very similar situation to anime, where the franchises I like are the ones Death Battle has used, and a lot of the other games I played I wouldn't be itching to see featured in a fight to the death. But I do have one pick, and it might be a bit of a controversial one, but one of the video games that made the biggest impact on my childhood is definitely Skylanders. This goddamn game came out at the perfect time. I was 10 years old, I loved to collect things, I loved gaming with my brother, so at that point it was like, take my money, and it sure did. I was so into all of the world building and platforming, I was so excited for the announcement of each new game, and to this day, not including reposed or crossover characters, there is only one figure I have not found yet, and it's him. I will get you one day, Chompy Mage. Now sadly, despite how much I adored this franchise and would love to see it on Death Battle, I honestly don't think there are that many worthwhile Skylanders matchups in circulation right now, despite a lot being theorized for them. The only one I actually think is really good is Chaos vs. Superhero Squad Dr. Doom, which would seriously hit me like a nostalgia truck, oh my god. I also remember when Jinx was revealed for Season 9, I thought it would be cool to have Trigger Happy Fighter,
character, but with her fighting Harley, maybe they could put him against Ziggs or some other similar character. I could see that working. But after that, I really don't know. Like, Knuckles versus Terrafin is such a funny idea, especially when you see exactly what they have in common, but I don't know if I'd say that's worthwhile to do as an actual episode, you know what I mean? And yes, I know I don't know all the ideas people have come up with for this series. I guess let me know some others if you think they're good, and I'm sure some other good ones could be made, and I'd really like that to be the case. I would go off the wall to see this franchise come to death battle in any way, so anything that would increase its chances is a-okay with me. And that brings us to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and at least respect the picks I made and the series that I am attached to. I'd love to hear the series you'd like to see get on the show, so leave that down in the comments if you want. As well, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff like this. But either way, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, that's it for me. I will see all of you guys in the next video. Peace out.